Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lair of the Film Exorcist. Tonight I will be reviewing Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Welcome to Raccoon City, once the booming home of pharmaceutical giant Umbrella Corp. The company's exodus left the city a wasteland, a dying town with great evil brewing below the surface. When that evil is unleashed, a group of survivors must work together to uncover the truth behind Umbrella and make it through the night. Now I'm gonna be honest, this summary that I had just read off is actually what appears at the beginning of the movie. This is what introduces the movie instead of the actual title. Well, I mean, that happens like 10-15 minutes later. This is the first thing that you see on screen. Now, this was supposed to be based on Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, two of the most well-known video games out there for zombie lovers. And to be honest, I hold this series heavily in my heart. I mean, yeah, my very first game, I will admit, was none of the first of the 4 games that were made. Instead, my very first game is one that a lot of people don't like because it's more of a team-based game. It was Operation Raccoon City, this parallel universe game that's technically very similar to Devil May Cry DMC. It's where this team, I forget the name of the team, is sent into Raccoon City. They're supposed to steal the serum or the virus and get out of there. But things go wrong. They end up fighting the Nemesis, or a version of the Nemesis, and they end up meeting with Leon and Claire in the city as they are trying to save Sherry, and the team ends up saving them and trying to help them out of the city. My second game that I played was Resident Evil 6, one of the games that a lot of people hate because it's more of an action game than an actual zombie killing game. It's also one of my favorite games out there, and I'm not ashamed of that. I enjoyed Resident Evil 6 because before that, I hadn't really played any of the trilogy, and I like action games and I like first-person shooters, so this was my intro to Resident Evil. I got into 7, then I started playing the rest of the games, and I have a really big love for these games, so I wasn't too happy today when I went to go see the movie with my brother. Now, I also enjoy the Resident Evil movies to a point because I find them fun to watch. They're really good action movies and interesting zombie killing movies. Yeah, after seeing this and not listening to all the reviews that told me don't go see it, I was really unhappy because they ruined the story and they ruined one of my favorite characters. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a Leon Kennedy stan. I find that guy hot and he is one of my favorite characters in the game. I love him in Resident Evil 4. I loved him in Resident Evil 6. I was an even bigger fan of him in the remake of Resident Evil 2. So, how do you think I felt when I learned he was being played by an Indian guy and who actually looked way too much like Carlos from Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil Nemesis? Yeah, I wasn't too happy. And I'm quoting Angry Joe, one of my favorite review channels on YouTube. Shout out to Joe, OG Joe, and I think the other one's name is just Joe, but yeah, shout out to them for making it very well known that Leon in this movie is essentially Doofy from Scary Movie 2. They make Leon Kennedy look like a joke in this movie, and that pisses me off so much. I mean, the only action scene he gets, actually killing something, is near the end where he shoots a rocket launcher at what is supposed to be William Birkin, but is this horrible CGI monster that has William's face and has the designs with the eyes in the game, but no. I forget what they claimed it looked like, what the eyes looked like, but no, that wasn't William Birkin. That wasn't even close to the final boss. This movie did Resident Evil dirty. I mean, I would have liked to see what it was like under James Wan, or the other director who dropped off before Roberts. And what disappointed me more was, this was made by Sony, the same company that made Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That movie is a masterpiece. This movie, I can't. I can't. Because I am so heartbroken that someone who claims to be a huge fan of the series and loves the first 2 games would go so far as to change everything except for the names of the characters and some of the monster designs. The only good things in this movie are the sets. I also like the little Easter egg thing of the Humpty Dumpty looking creature doll thing that Lisa Trevor kept carrying around. I do remember that is one of the collectibles that you can shoot in, I believe, Resident Evil 3. Don't quote me on that. I can't exactly remember which game it was, but shout out for that one Easter egg that felt like it actually was brought from one of the games. I also really like the monster designs for the ones that actually were in the movies, like in the games. Like, the Licker looked really good to me. Lisa Trevor looked very similar to what she looks like in Resident Evil 1. The only problem is I didn't like how she could actually say people's names and could actually talk. I was waiting for her to cry out "Mama" like in the games. Like, that is the main thing in those games. She's looking for her mother, and she's this child that was experimented on so much by Umbrella Corp that she can barely, you can't even call her human anymore. So they kind of ruined her. They had her end up fighting the Licker, and that, well, it's fun seeing her tear up the Licker. It took me out of the movie. They brought in director Irons, Brian Irons, from the Resident Evil 2 and 3 games, and had the Licker kill him off instead of William Birkin like in the games. I kind of wish they'd added Mr. X. Now, I get it, it would have elongated the movie past an hour and 50 minutes, but yeah, you should have found a way to add in Mr. X, one of the most iconic villains, or at least even the Tyrant from 0 and 1. I am glad that they added Ben in this game, but again, without Mr. X, it didn't really work, because Mr. X is the guy. Ben wasn't killed by any kind of zombie. His head was obliterated by Mr. X in the game, so that was disappointing. William Birkin looks like shit in this movie. I mean, they gave him the arm with the eyeballs and his face on the side, but yeah, it looked like complete fucking shit, and I hate it. I hate his final form. I hate this. It's very inaccurate to the games, despite this being closer to the games than what Wes Anderson did. And that's the other thing that pisses me off. Wes Anderson was on the executive production board of this movie. Like, the guy that made the original Resident Evil live-action movies was a part of this movie. That I can see why this movie got so screwed over with $25 million. We at least got the truck crash that takes place in Resident Evil 2, but it happened way too close to the PD, and that scene was so stupid because during that time, they didn't have noise-canceling headphones. Trust me, I had I had a disc player when I was a child, and I know those headphones are not soundproof. So Leon should have heard that zombie trucker coming, and this is stupid. This is a really bad movie. It doesn't even deserve the views that it got. I mean, I was looking around in the theater when I saw it today, and it was just me, my youngest brother, who has no clue about Resident Evil other than that Ethan was in the games, or that there's a character named Ethan. He's never played the games, he's never watched any of the movies, and he's just listening to me bash this movie. And there was one other guy in the theater, so that shows you nobody wanted to see this movie because of how bad it is. Look at it this way. Claire, she had a similar outfit, but she didn't act like Claire in the games. She was a very different character. Jill is played by an African American. Don't get me wrong, I'm okay with inclusion in movies, but she looked nothing like her character in the game, and this was just bad casting. And every actor in this movie was so fucking wooden that I don't even want to ever see this movie again. I'm never coming back to this movie. Another thing, Wesker isn't supposed to care about his team. Also, again, Wesker is supposed to not care about these guys. He's supposed to be the main villain of this game. Next, or at least in the very first game, Wesker is the actual villain. And he's not. How do you screw up such a great movie? And I'm gonna say it right now. And I've seen many people mention this already. They should have turned this into either a mini-series that takes place in the Spencer Mansion and goes through, like, each season would go through each game. Or they should have done one game per movie. Like, for this one, we'd either do 0 or we'd do Resident Evil 1. The next one we could do 2. The one after that we could do 3. We could make movies out of the games, but this is like the Spider-Man 3 of the Resident Evil live-action movies. You've basically got too much story, too many characters. You've got pretty much too many cooks in the kitchen, and you can't have that. You can't. Or you're gonna screw it up, no matter how many references to the games you have, no matter how many times you use the characters' names from the games, no matter how many monsters that you try to use from the games, you screwed it up, and you ruined this movie for me. Before I went to go see it, after watching Angry Joe's, the non-spoiler part of the review, I was praying that this movie would be really good despite what everyone said. I was praying it would be like The Rise of Skywalker for me, Sonic the Hedgehog for me. I was hoping that all the reviewers were wrong and this was just a really good movie, but it wasn't. They were all right, and to be honest, it was so bad as soon as I got home, it made me sick. I ended up throwing up because of how bad this movie was. Which is why I'm giving this movie a 1. Again, some of the monster designs are good. They did the zombie scene really well that we see in the very first game with the zombie turning its head, but it also kind of lost its bite because we've already seen zombies in the movie at this point, so it was a little too late. And again, the scenery is really good, but Sony, never touch another Resident Evil movie again. I swear to God, don't even waste your time watching this. Go watch something else. I'm serious. So, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and click the little notification bell for more videos and to see more of our content. And, again, if you ever see this movie in the stores, buy a copy and then burn it or smash it, because this does not deserve to be watched by anyone. Screw you, Roberts. Screw you, Sony. Stick to video games. Don't ever make another live-action Resident Evil movie. Save that for someone who actually knows what the hell they're doing. Have a great night, guys, and good luck.